Nicole Shanahan is joining us. How are you, Nicole?
I'm doing well, Glenn. Thanks for having me back on. How are you?
I'm very good. You know, a few months ago when RFK was running and you joined, I thought, well, there goes the conservative vote. Anybody was watching it because you are Oakland, California. You are much more liberal or progressive. And now I'm reevaluating everything again because there are people that are on the left, not left, that are, well, lean left, that have different points of view, but still love the country. And we don't see those people very often in the news, you know? And those people we can get along with all day long. If you love the Bill of Rights, I'm with you.
Yep. Yeah, there's a huge population out there and they don't know where to go right now. A lot of them were attracted to our campaign. And our campaign was really a place to go if you were kind of socially progressive or liberal, but intellectually educated and saw what was happening with the Democratic Party and just none of it reconciled. I mean, if you look at the Democratic Party over the last 8 years, you can't reconcile their relationship with the economy. It doesn't make any sense. So if you're a business person, went to a top educational institution, came out, got a job, spent 20 years of your career in front of spreadsheets, and you're seeing what's going on under Democratic leadership, even in the state of California, it does not reconcile. And so a lot of these folks, and lawyers too, have nowhere to go right now. And it's been really interesting for me just in my personal experience. I'm an attorney. I came out of Oakland, but I worked hard. And, I did rely on the government's safety net to catch me. I was on government assistance at times as a child, but it was never a place to stay. The goal was always to work your way out of that. And those were the foundations of the ethics I grew up on. That's right.
Those are the ethics that I grew up on too. I learned about welfare from my father. He owned a bakery, and a woman came in, and I was little, and she used a welfare stamp to pay, and I had never seen one before. And I said, "Dad, that's not real money." And he gave me the look of death. This little old lady was buying stuff, and he pulled me back after she left. He said, "Don't ever say that, ever again. That woman is struggling. That's what we do. That's what a government safety net is for people who need it like her. Don't ever embarrass her again." And I'm like, "I did. Sorry, Dad." Then later, about, 6-8 months later, my dad happened to come up front, and it was a guy who had food stamps, and he paid. And my father was pretty nasty to the guy. I mean, he was very cold. And I asked him, I'm like, "What? That guy gave you the same kind of money?" And he said, "That man, I know. That man can work. He decides to live off the rest of us. That's where it goes wrong." And I think all of us kind of grew up with that. I mean, most of us.
Yeah, except for young people today. And I think that's where the left is cannibalizing the best of itself. And I say cannibalizing because it's actually working against its own interests for compassion and social growth, and trying to figure out how to help people get through difficult times. I think that how it's cannibalizing itself really exists in the identity politics. I know you talk a lot about that, but I experienced it as a philanthropist trying to go back to Oakland and trying to really work on the issues that matter and identifying them with just a strict logical process. I looked at the issues around homelessness, around drug abuse, around the education gap. And I realized so much of it has to do with nutrition and health. And so I went about trying to fix that. And I will tell you, of all of the NGOs I was approached by and worked with, none were interested in real food. A lot of them were interested in activism and funneling millions of dollars into these re-grant programs that don't actually help people and make them reliant on these nonprofit dollars. And so the mechanics of social mobility, and you can look at it strictly through, the lens of economics, you can look at it through social dynamics, and you come out realizing that you have to invest in schools and education. Clean water is a huge one, but also food. Kids underperform when they don't eat well. And the fact that they're not addressing this on the left, that there's no NGOs that are sincerely working on this, made me realize that that entire framework, the culture of that thinking about poor versus wealthy or Black versus white was all wrong. It's just the wrong way of looking at it. And then realizing how many people are profiting off of that model of the world, that framework of the world. It's very predatory. It's predatory.
It's grotesque.
On people. Yeah, it's grotesque. It's predatory. It actually feeds into the cycle of racism, and it doesn't work. And things have gotten actually worse as these NGOs have just kind of gotten away with this bad behavior.
So, Nicole, what moved you to say, I think I've got to go stand with Donald Trump? I mean, that had to shock you when you thought that. What moved you there?
Well, there were so many things that have led to it, but I will say that when I left the Democratic Party, there were threats kind of lobbed my direction, but they kind of seemed like silly threats, like, oh, you'll never make it. Right. They're going to do everything to ruin your reputation. The machine's going to be pointed at you, and I don't think you realize what we have in this machine. And I was like, I can overcome that. That's all silliness. and then the media. So first they unleash the media on you. And I was like, so many of these things can be disproven. I lost a lot of respect for the media, but I had already lost quite a bit of respect for them prior. And you can kind of get over all that name calling. And once people get a chance to know you, they realize that the media really had so much of you wrong. But then, then came the attack on our campaign directly. And it all came from the left. None of it came from the right. And even though Republicans have actually earned or outraised the Democrats, Republicans don't spend their money attacking their opponents the way the Democrats do. And this is some really underhanded stuff that really makes you question election integrity in ways that I had actually never questioned election integrity. I didn't believe that there was election interference in 2020. I didn't believe the narrative coming from the right that the election was stolen. And so,
do you now?
I do now. I do.
You do now?
I do now.
What brought you there?
Lived experience. They say the two things that really get people to change their minds are grief and God. And I have to say, there were some really heartbreaking moments during this campaign. We gave it everything, and we followed the black letter law very precisely. And we did the amount of heart and soul and tears and running around. People were just constantly sweaty on our campaign because everyone wore 6 different hats, and they would be crossing the country 4 times every few days. It was so much work, and we succeeded in what many people thought was impossible, which was even just getting on all of the ballots, all 50 ballots. And we did. And the day that we did, that same, just within a few hours, we found out that New York, and they had been suing us. We had won 7 cases, 7 of these ballot cases where the Democratic Party came in, or their aligned PACs, and sued us, attempted to sue us to get us removed from the ballots, which I can't believe is even legal, that a political opponent can sue you to take you off the ballot. But it's apparently common practice for the Democrats. Mm-hmm. And Republicans don't do this. Remember, Republicans just don't do that because they respect third parties. They respect democracy. They respect the things that make democracy democracy. So anyway, so we won all 7. We were 7-0. We were feeling good. We just did this big press event. And then New York came along, and the case in New York really opened my eyes, because this was a judge that was not acting on behalf of the American public. This was a judge acting on behalf of the Democratic Party. And there was just no room for a legal argument. The decision seemed to already have been made by the time we arrived. They treated Bobby like a petty criminal. I later testified. My experience testifying felt just got awful, like I had done something wrong by trying to run as a third party in this country. And I think through this process, and then realizing the extent of how much they're willing to denigrate the democratic process in this country to win, and how entitled they feel doing so. And you know, Bobby and I, our personalities are very much aligned with that California liberal mentality, and so to be treated by friends, colleagues, people that know you like this made me realize that something was very, very wrong.
When you said there was 2 things that change you, God and grief, and you started going down that road about the grief you felt, I remember early on when I realized, oh my gosh, this system is not what I thought it was. I actually felt like it was in mourning for a while. It felt like part of my belief died, and it was really hard to get through. But if you get through it, it makes you stronger.
Absolutely. And I will say that the people that I'm trying to reach out to today are those that have a lot at stake. These are moms who have the lives of their children at stake right now, who have seen the system failing them and their kids, trying to dissect away parental rights from their children. And they dislike Donald Trump because they view Donald Trump as a misogynist. And so these are the conversations that I'll be investing in over the next several weeks in the lead up to the election, is really digging into people's perceptions of Donald Trump as this, really kind of unsavory character. And I have personally been doing my own fact checking. I'll be releasing some of that soon. We have, I did a series with this really wonderful young 25-year-old journalist, Link Lauren, called TDS Therapy Hour, where I read letters that I've received from people with grave concerns about our alignment with Donald Trump. And we unpack all of those concerns very patiently, one after another.
So great.
And I think that's how we do it, Glenn. I know you were once a never Trumper, but I think that once you understand how manipulated and programmed we are by the mainstream media to see Donald Trump as this horrific personality, and once you start unpacking the truth, you can begin to see truly what this man has been up against.
Nicole, we're out of time. I know you have to run as well. I would love to have you back. I think you are absolutely fascinating, and you are a very important voice to speak to women who do have that feeling and are absolutely convinced to their core. And I'd love to have you back. Nicole, thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Backtothepeople.net. Backtothepeople.net. Nicole Shanahan.